These are the most disturbing crimes that happen in the Gravity Falls community, and as the video progresses, the cases will just keep getting worse. Created by Alex Hirsch, Gravity Falls premiered on the Disney Channel on June 15, 2012. It followed twins Dipper and Mabel Pines as they spent a summer with their great uncle, or grunkle, Stan, in the fictional town of Gravity Falls. However, what they expected to be a boring summer in the middle of nowhere turned out to be full of dangerous paranormal events. From haunted convenience stores to an interdimensional demon triggering the apocalypse. This show really packed horror themes into a Disney Channel cartoon. Now the series ended on February 15, 2016, but with the fan community remaining active even today, it was no surprise that when Alex released a lore book on July 23, 2024, titled The Book of Bill, it became a massive hit. The book was written as a fictional journal by the show's main villain, Bill Cipher, the interdimensional demon that I mentioned earlier. The Book of Bill was reported to have sold over 850,000 copies within its first year, and even earned a spot in the New York Times bestseller list between July 2024 to January of 2025. But with it being so in demand, it also attracted the attention of people outside of the Gravity Falls community. Religious groups all over social media began warning people against buying the Book of Bill, calling it a Satanic Bible for younger people, due to its graphic images and mysterious messages. Here's the warning for parents and teenagers and preteens. This book is very much like the Satanic Bible for It is called The Book of Bill. It is created by Disney, and I'm sure there's an animated movie or show to go with it. One more attempt to grab the young souls. Witchcraft has been a topic for years, where parents thought it was okay because the witches look good, but it isn't fun and games anymore. From Harry Potter to the Book of Bill, Satan is at work and things for our attention. This book has taken an oath very much like all demonic things like the Masons on up. The TV series Lucifer, which put a spin on Lucifer being misunderstood, and I knew some female pastors who loved the show. Cause in her words, Lucifer is hot. So what are we letting our young people see? And now witchcraft is in concerts everywhere, from Taylor Swift to other well-known artists. If you see this book in your home, get rid of it. A conservative podcast called Battle Plan also discussed the book in their October 11, 2024 episode, accusing it of teaching to summon a demon, given that its first few pages had the reader pretend to summon Bill into existence. Now over 2 weeks later, on October 30th, Christian author Lindsay Miedenwald published an extensive article about both the Gravity Falls show and the Book of Bill in the Christian Research Institute website. In the article titled, "When Entertainment is a Portal to the Occult," she discussed how the show's occult themes and imagery might not be suitable for the usual Disney audience, saying, "Christian parents and grandparents should know that Gravity Falls isn't just another animated series. It normalizes the occult to the point where kids will be desensitized." She also pointed out Bill's version of morality, which the book describes as a very flexible concept, designed to cram your brain full of guilt and regrets. To Lindsay, this sounded like he was encouraging readers to just do whatever they want in life, rather than stick to man-made constructs of morality. Now, although she acknowledged that the book's target readers were older teens and young adults who grew up watching the cartoon 10 years ago, she warned how the new generation of fans might be too impressionable to be reading something closely resembling a satanic book. This book is supposed to be satire, I think, but it comes off as real and blasphemous. It seems like a slap in the face to Christianity. The accusations gained a wider audience on social media over a year later, when an ex-user posted a video of him finding the Book of Bill in Walmart on November 26, 2025.
So I'm walking through Walmart. This catches my eye. It literally has you do a ritual, bro.
He then began flipping the pages and was horrified by the images. And with 5-star reviews on Amazon saying things like, "Bill Cipher is now my master," and "Are you ready to sign a blood pact with Bill?" people were starting to think that the occult allegations might be true. In fact, Alex didn't even deny the rumors. In a post made on Twitter, he joked about it, saying, "This is crazy. I encourage everyone to buy a copy so they can burn it. Better make it 10 copies, just to be safe." Fans of Gravity Falls also found it funny how a book about a fiction character caused a lot of hate. In the audio version of Lindsay's article, which was posted on YouTube on February 28, 2025, one fan also pointed out that the creator of the show was religious. It's making fun of Satanist people for believing this stuff, and by calling it satanic, you've fallen for the joke. Although this claim isn't accurate, since Alex posted on X on March 22nd, 2015 that "My sis and I are ethnically half Jewish on dad's side, but were raised religiously agnostic, celebrating both Christmas and Hanukkah." And while the book sparked online debates, Disney never addressed the satanic panic, and the book continued filling shelves across the globe. And though Disney was okay with the demonic looking elements of this book, the Gravity Falls creator himself exposed their attempts to hide other controversial storylines within the series.
The following are real emails from the Disney TV Standards and Practices Department.
Why should we be held hostage to any imaginary knee-jerk career complainer who could conceivably go out of their way to pretend to be offended by this?
Before Gravity Falls, the only other animated series Disney produced that leaned into darker themes was Gargoyles, which aired in 1994 and ended in 1997. So it took 15 years for the animation giant to open its doors to another cartoon with horror creatures at its center. And apparently, this decision came with a lot of restrictions. On November 26, 2014, the episode titled The Love God aired. The plot revolved around the twins meeting an entity who could make anyone fall in love. And just 8 days after the show aired, one of its storyboard artists, Sage Cartunio, posted her work on the episode on her Tumblr blog page. However, there was one difference between the plot she posted and what Disney ended up approving. In the scene that was actually aired, the Love God matched an elderly woman with a man at the diner. But in Sage's storyboard, the Love God matched her with another elderly woman, prompting fans to speculate that Disney removed the same gender relationship. Then on July 14, 2017, over a year after the series ended, Alex addressed the change during an interview with the entertainment site, The Mary Sue. He said, "When one of our storyboard artists presented the scene to me, she'd made one of the couple's two lovable old ladies. It was sweet and casual, and I knew instantly that it was going to turn into a huge fight with Disney. We probably had 6 or so conversations about it. It's one of the only times I had a face-to-face meeting with the censors. But despite my greatest efforts, it finally came down to change the scene or we'll cut it out of the episode ourselves." And this confirmed that Disney intentionally avoided the representation of LGBTQ in the show, despite having other programs and products that show support for the community. And when Disney posted their support of Pride Month on X on June 2nd, 2022, Alex responded by saying, "Disney privately, cut the gay scene. We might lose precious pennies from Russia and China. Disney publicly, Hong Kong, we put rainbow bumper sticker on Lightning McQueen today. Consume our products, teens." Now, while this public call-out against Disney was surprising, Alex wasn't done exposing the company that actually aired his show. Days later, on June 16, 2022, Alex posted a video on X revealing his battles with Disney and its Standards and Practices Department, or S&P. The video showed emails from S&P back in September 2011, nearly a year before Gravity Falls even aired. They demanded Alex revise words and scenes that they deemed too offensive for their channel, while the Gravity Falls creator pointed out how unnecessary the changes would be. In one example, S&P demanded the removal of a line that had the word Lucifer, since they'd feared they'd get complaints about mentioning the devil, and Alex responded with,
So what if we get a complaint? The current line, scrimshod from the tusks of Lucifer himself, is the kind of stuffy, non-political, old-timey purple prose like you'd see in Moby Dick. It's 100% less offensive to any religion than the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride hell scene in Disneyland.
He even suggested how to respond if they ever get complaints about the word, saying,
"Sir or madam, we respect your religion, but this fanciful public domain language is used in a spooky, Halloween-like context and in no way represents a commentary on any belief system whatsoever. Please eat this Mickey-shaped cookie and enjoy this cute, classic, family-friendly Disney cartoon."
Other notes also restricted Alex from depicting anything that resembled something religious, like the word Jeez, which S&P believed could be mistaken as an abbreviation for Jesus, and Holy Christmas, which they think would be offensive to other religions. Now, unsurprisingly, people on X flocked to the comment section to point out Disney's contradicting views. One noted how Disney had depicted the devil in many of their movies, and even had Cinderella's stepmother owning a cat named Lucifer. And apart from words connected to religion, Alex revealed that Disney also tried to remove scenes with 2 other characters who were also supposed to be in a relationship. In one note, S&P told Alex to remove a scene where Sheriff Blubbs placed his arm around Deputy Derlin.
"I think someone just sped by.
Probably just a dream.
With you, every day is a dream."
In response, Alex claimed that the officers were just buddy in an attempt to make the scene sound less controversial. But in the scene's finale, he was finally able to confirm that the two were in a relationship. The censorship of Blubbs and Derlin's relationship added fuel to the fans' anger at how Disney would rather show a demon threatening the lives of younger people than depict a same-gender relationship. And while Disney censored this and religious words, they had seemingly no problem with Gravity Falls being involved in a real-life secret society.
Signs in the show allude that there's something even bigger happening in Gravity Falls. Many of the mysteries in this town lie within hidden symbols throughout the show. Symbols that, in most cases, refer to real-life conspiracies.
From the very intro of Gravity Falls, the cartoon was full of symbols that raised some eyebrows from fans. Most prominent of them was a split-second image of a triangular creature with a single eye at the end of the opening theme. This creature would end up appearing in seemingly random places throughout the series, making viewers wonder if this Disney cartoon was somehow connected to the secret society known as the Illuminati. According to the international journalism site Modern Diplomacy, this group was believed to operate in various fields such as global politics, military affairs, finance, and mass media, and control the historical process of the entire world, with their ultimate goal being to establish a new world order. This new world order, as explained by Middlebury Institute's research, was the theory that the powerful elites elites are secretly implementing a dystopian international governing structure that will grant them complete control over the global populace. And the triangle shape with an eye closely resembled the symbol known as the Eye of Providence, or the All-Seeing Eye, which is famously linked to the Illuminati. And this had many fans and theorists worried how a Disney cartoon was openly showing their connection to a well-known and feared cult. Now, the idea of a group plotting to control the world frightened believers of this conspiracy. So on July 1st, 2012, just barely a month after the series premiered, one blogger named Agati181 made a blog post warning their readers that in Disney's latest show, Gravity Falls, they show everyone which masters they truly serve. They really don't care who knows it either. If anyone had doubts about their connections to the Illuminati, I'm sure this show validates everything. And this post garnered hundreds of comments debating whether Disney and Gravity Falls were declaring their loyalty to the secret society or not. One commenter even insisted that Gravity Falls is the Illuminati. The whole plot, the characters, the messages, sugar-coated in rainbows. I wish I could save every soul whose eyes will burn watching this. Then, over a year after this post, on July 12, 2013, the episode Dreamscaperers aired and finally introduced the audience to the triangular creature, Bill's Cipher. Now, this confirmed that the supposed Eye of Providence symbolism throughout the series were foreshadowing the appearance of this character, who became the show's main villain. However, there was one problem. The episode revolved around child sidekick Gideon summoning Bill in a ritual, and the scene of a child summoning and making a deal with a demon was already concerning for many, most especially parents of younger viewers. But the episode also showed this.
What are you? How do you know my name?
Oh, I know lots of things.
Lots of things.
This made the connection to the all-seeing eye more convincing to some, since, as the name suggested, the eye watched everything that happened in the world and its history, at least according to popular Illuminati theories. Also, when he said that line, his face showed images of various events in history that were full of conspiracies, like the moon landing and the pyramids, which many believed were built by aliens. And so, the appearance of Bill made the Illuminati theories more widespread, as more people began posting about it. Now, Alex himself addressed the theories just a day after the episode aired, saying, "The rumors that I'm hiding occult symbols in the show are totally false. I'm not hiding them at all. They're in plain sight." Since then, Alex continued posting and poking fun at the Illuminati theories. Like when a user claiming to be part of the Illuminati thanked him for the show. Alex responded on October 9th, 2013 with, "Words are cheap. I want a seat at the table and some nice skull chalices, yo." And barely an hour later, he then added, "Well, I'm part of the Illuminati now." Though after joking around the topic, Alex finally talked more about his choice of Bill's design in his August 2014 Time magazine interview, saying, "It seems funny to me to take the most ominous, Illuminati-looking symbol and stab Mr. Peanut arms and legs onto him, and throw him into the mix. It's something that always struck me as hilarious." Although Alex confirmed that he deliberately chose the Illuminati symbolism as a joke, believers continue debating about it to this day. And while the Illuminati conspiracy was controversial, this next group had a known history of silencing their critics in the most disturbing way, and yet Alex decided to publicly challenge them.
In 2017, Alex tweeted a secret he seemed to have been hiding for the longest time. He stated that he always wanted to do an episode where Grunkle Stan started his own religion called Stanentology. He drew a picture with Grunkle Stan saying that alien ghosts live in your bones and asking for a tax break. This was a clear dig at the controversial religion of Scientology, and it looked like the legal department didn't want this to happen.
On August 4th, 2017, Alex posted this image on X, showing Grunkle Stan wearing a sea captain uniform with patches of an alien and the planet Saturn. His speech bubble said, "Alien ghosts live in your bones. Tax break, please." Alex explained in his post that he always wanted to do an episode where Grunkle Stan started his own religion, called Stanentology. Legal department frowned on this. Now fans were excited to learn about this lost plotline, with many of them even claiming to want to join Stan's religion, although others had a good idea why Disney rejected this idea, with one fan even noting that, "Considering the history of lawsuits or attempted murder of Scientology, I kinda get where Disney was coming from here." Now, the Church of Scientology is a religion established in 1953, where followers believe that humans are immortal spirits trapped in physical bodies. Now, this belief likely was what Alex was referencing in his post. The name of the fake religion, Stanentology, also sounded like a parody of the word Scientology, and fans who'd been following Alex's social media knew exactly what the Gravity Falls creator felt about this particular group. Back on January 25th, 2013, mere months after Gravity Falls began, Alex posted on his X that he bought the book titled Going Clear: Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief. The book was about the inner workings and conspiracies about Scientology, while Alex used the bookmark with a photo of actor Tom Cruise, who's a known member of the religious group. Then on January 28, 2015, he began his direct criticism of the group, saying, "Turns out Scientology only has 50,000 members. That means my Twitter account has more followers than Scientology." Now this post was followed by a rude remark towards David Miscavige, the current leader of Scientology. But Alex wasn't done ridiculing this group. Just over a week later, on February 9th, he explicitly declared that, "Whether liberal or conservative, black or white, gay or straight, we can all agree on on one thing: Scientology is nonsense. He then continued posting blatant criticism, even calling them a cult. Now, Alex also directly ridiculed Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard, saying on July 28, 2019, that he was an abusive science fiction writer who waged war against the IRS, let his wife take the fall for his crimes, fled to international waters, and died a reclusive fugitive rambling about aliens. Now, Alex's statements, however, weren't just trolling, they were dangerous, giving this religious group's history of how they handled criticism. In 1955, L. Ron wrote The Scientologist, a manual on the dissemination of material, which served as a guide for spreading the church's ideology. In a famous quote from that document, L. Ron wrote, "The purpose of the suit is to harass and discourage, rather than win. The law can be used very easily to harass, and enough harassment on somebody who's simply on the thin edge anyway, well, knowing that he's not authorized would generally be sufficient to cause professional decease. If possible, of course, ruin him utterly." Now, this implied that L. Ron believed that legal lawsuits were weapons to destroy someone's life and career, whether or not they win those lawsuits. And throughout Scientology's existence, they seem to be doing this and other forms of harassment against their critics. One case, for example, was Paulette Cooper, a journalist who wrote The Scandal of Scientology in 1971. Now, after the publication of her book, she became a target of the group's Special Affairs Department, who were known as Guardian's Office, or GO at the time. Within the same year of the book's publishing, Paulette was sued for libel by the GO, and even reported to have dozens of strangers stalking her. She also received threatening calls and found her phone lines tampered with, hinting that someone was eavesdropping on her calls. Now, in her interview with ABC News Network in July 2015, Paulette also revealed more harassment from the group, saying, "It was 300 people. They sent a letter saying I was an intimate worker with venereal disease and had attacked my daughter. They sent anonymous letters to my parents, saying I was practicing perversions with their clergymen." And when the harassment led to her depression, Paulette claimed that the church robbed a psychiatrist and got my records and sent that to everybody that I knew. Now, worst of all, the church had attempted to get her imprisoned for bomb threats, with Paulette recounting, "They got my fingerprints on a piece of paper, and then they sent bomb threats to themselves, and they had me arrested for a terrorist crime." Now, fortunately, after 2 years of legal trouble, Paulette's charges were dropped, but the harassment did cause her mental health to drop, and even pushed her to consider her life needed to end. Now, fortunately for her, in 1976, the FBI began investigating the GO after Scientology members were caught attempting to break into a Washington courthouse to steal records about their members. The investigation led to the discovery of their plans against Paulette, which included plans to frame her in more bomb threats, including one they intended for then President Gerald Ford. Now, with this evidence, Paulette sued the Church of Scientology for their years-long harassment, and eventually they had to agree to a sizable settlement with her to make the case go away. Now, despite getting caught attempting an extreme harassment campaign in the 1970s, the Church of Scientology wasn't done with this tactic against people who questioned them. Now, as it turned out, the group had already taken notice of Alex and his posts. On July 28, 2019, Alex posted on X that he'd get a fat cat and name him L. Ron Hubbard. You can't stop me, Scientology. And mere hours later, the official X account of Scientology replied with, "Hello Alex, thanks for messaging us. I see you're feline catty today. For those unaware, L. Ron Hubbard is the most published author of all time, and the founder of Dianetics and the Scientology religion." Now, Alex promptly replied with, "He is your crazy founder talking about alien ghosts. You can learn more about him literally anywhere in the world. That isn't your own propaganda." Now, the despite over the Scientology founder actually went on for hours, with Alex constantly replying with accusations against L. Ron and his church. He even mentioned the concerns about Shelley, since even by this point she hadn't been seen in public. And with the interaction getting a lot of attention, Alex ultimately posted a sarcastic warning. "Scientology responded to one of my tweets. If any of you find me face down in the LA River with a golden S stuck in my bag, you know who did it." And even though Alex sounded like he was making jokes about this, the Church of Scientology's history of handling public figures criticizing them made fans hope that they won't retaliate against the Gravity Falls creator. And while Scientology hasn't filed any lawsuits against Alex for his post, one project that involved the whole Gravity Falls community earned the creator a phone call from the police.
So, I was as surprised as anybody to discover that Bill Cipher had been arrested by the police and hauled out.
It was February 15, 2016, when the show's final episode aired, becoming a bittersweet moment for its fans. Now, before the finale actually aired, Alex had announced that their season 2 was the definitive end to Gravity Falls, and he had no plans to continue the story. So when the credits started rolling, no one expected a new mystery hidden at the end. But for just a split second after the credits, a grainy video of a Bill Cipher statue in a real-life forest was shown. Now, during its runtime, fans loved solving the mysteries within the Gravity Falls universe, as the cartoon was full of puzzles and hidden lore. Even the theme song from the very first episode contained a puzzle that hinted where the show was heading.
The page is covered in mathematical codes and alchemical symbols, including a cipher that translates to "Stan is not what he seems,"
and a whisper at the end. The whisper, when reversed, told fans, which was the instruction code to decode the messages at the end of each episode. So upon seeing this video, they were left wondering what it meant. And on July 21st, months after the series finale, Alex posted the final clue to the global hunt for the real-life statue that would be known as the Cipher Hunt. This hunt was a unique experience for fans to actively solve the puzzles together and search for the next clue in real-life places across the world. And the hunt was a success, as it encouraged thousands of fans worldwide to help each other in solving puzzles online and in person. However, the hunt ended with someone calling the police. On August 2nd, 2016, just under 2 weeks after the hunt began, the statue was located by ex-user Momo in a wooden area in Reedsport, Oregon.
I can't believe I found it! Oh my god, I'm freaking out. I don't want to. Oh, he's all broken and stuff. Oh, his hat's broken.
Excited fans quickly flooded her post, asking where it was so they could actually visit it. And on that night, more fans near the area arrived and discovered a treasure chest buried under the statue. What they didn't know was that they were already committing a crime. When Linda Parker, the owner of the land where the statue was located, arrived at the scene, she was shocked to find groups of people trespassing on her property and digging around. And afraid of who they were and what they were doing, she called the police. Now on the next day, on August 3rd, more Gravity Falls fans began arriving, only to witness local police digging out the statue and carrying it away. This left fans confused, and scrambling to take pictures, videos and even souvenirs out of the treasure chest before they were all taken to the police station. Now the same day, the Reedsport Police Department called Alex and his friend, Fawn Davis, who created the statue. They were questioned for placing the Bill statue on private property, but Fawn argued that he had connections with the real estate company Showfield Development LLC, which gave them permission to place the statue there. However, after rechecking the property lines, the Bill statue was apparently placed 117 feet away from the spot they'd initially planned to set it up, and those 170 feet had the statue cross beyond the property line, owned by Schofield Development, and end up in Linda's land. Now what's worse was that there were bear droppings and empty shotgun shells in the area where the statue was located. So the Cipher Hunt could have sent fans into an area where bears and possibly armed hunters roamed.
I was convinced we were gonna get attacked by a bear because it was like so dark and it was just so scary.
Fortunately, no one was harmed, and after explaining everything to Linda, she understood and didn't press any charges. In the 2024 Cipher Hunt documentary uploaded on YouTube, she shared a statement saying, "I never gave permission for this to take place, and at the time was fairly upset about the possibility of lots of people wandering around my property and the liability that went with it. Please don't make me out to be a bad person. I just didn't have any idea what was going on at the time." Now while this matter was settled, the crimes surrounding the Bill statue weren't over yet. Alex had the statue moved from the police station to the Bicentennial Park in Reedsport, Oregon on August 5th, 2016. Then, 10 days later on August 15th, Alex discovered that Bill's hat was missing, so he sent out a call for help on X. "Anyone know who the fan was who took Bill's hat? Bill wants it back." He added that according to the Reedsport Police Department, a fan had claimed the hat was theirs and took it. Now this post caused an uproar among the community. Most fans called out the person who stole the iconic statue's hat, while also criticizing the police for just giving it away. Then, just hours later, Alex posted a job ad on X, searching for someone to help him move the statue to an undisclosed location. And in response to this, a fan named Samuel Irish posted a video offering his services to relocate the statue.
"If you need someone, I am very free to do it. Like, the most free. My schedule is clear open for a while now. Thank you for considering me, though."
And when Alex saw his video, he hired Samuel to do the job. And while many continued to believe that another fan had stolen the hat, Samuel would actually reveal years later in the 2024 documentary that the story was apparently false. Now this story was supported by Momo's post just 3 days after she found the statue. In it, she described how its hat was infested with ants, even before the police took it away.
"Unfortunately, the hat was gone because it was infested with fire ants, so they had to get a new one made. Asked the cops down at Reedsport about it because they showed up to help us pull it down. They're like, yeah, no, you don't want the hat. We threw it away. It was, someone picked it up and immediately got bit like 3 or 4 times."
Now finally on August 20th, fans discovered the statue's new home in Confusion Hill, a tourist attraction in California, and thankfully it now sported a new and free hat. The famous statue is still in Confusion Hill, where fans can happily visit it. Meanwhile, the next story was made by a Gravity Falls fan artist, but it left fans horrified by how dark the story went.
The internet really hooked up a demon from the second dimension with an actual so we do have to talk about it.
On September 8, 2014, the Gravity Falls episode Talk Oprah aired. The episode centered around Dipper agreeing to give Bill a puppet in exchange for the password to a laptop they found in a mysterious bunker. However, after shaking his hand, Bill chose Dipper as his puppet instead, so he possessed his body. Now the demon proceeded to torment Dipper's body. Yet despite how horrible this was to the character, it spawned something even more disturbing within the Gravity Falls community. Suddenly, fans were shipping the two characters, creating the Bill-Dip fandom. Shipping, or a ship, is when fans root for a relationship between fictional characters, even if they're not romantically involved in the source material. This often results in fanfiction, fan arts, and fan comics. Now the Bill Dip ship is one of the most popular ones in the Gravity Falls community, generating more than 4,000 works on fanfiction website Archive of Our Own, and over 45,000 results on the story writing platform Wattpad. Now despite its popularity, however, Bill Dip is also one of the most hated ships in the Gravity Falls community. Part of this was because this ship became popular after an episode where Bill was mentally and physically attacking Dipper. Now what's more disturbing was that the harm itself became inspiration for fan content, often showing Bill as the aggressor while Dipper was forced into what many believed was an abusive relationship. Now making the ship sound worse for people was the massive age gap between the two characters. Bill, as I mentioned before, was a demon, and according to the show, he was at least over 1 trillion years old. Meanwhile, Dipper was born barely over a decade before the Gravity Falls story began. This meant that the fan content that showed Bill's interactions with Dipper, both the directly harmful ones and the supposed romantic ones, were being done by a demon on a... Now because of this, many Gravity Falls fans began targeting those who created Bill Dip content, and it wouldn't take long before these online debates would escalate to harassment that affected people in real life. Artist Fruity Arcanine was one of the Bill Dip shippers who were targeted. She often created fan art where the characters were in alternate universes, or AUs, most of which had Dipper and Bill as mystical creatures like sirens or half-deer, half-human hybrids. Adding animal-like creatures into the already troubling mix, Fruity Arcanine became a target of online attacks from those against this controversial ship starting in September 2015. Suddenly, she was flooded with anonymous messages, mostly accusing her of being a PDF file and being into intimacy with animals, and telling her to voluntarily leave the planet. In one of the messages, Fruity Arcanine responded with, "I'm sorry Anon if my artwork offends you. I didn't realize that someone other than myself, who has gone through the tragedy of being forced into participating in the act of forced intimacy with their pet deer by someone they loved when they were just small, would ignore the tags and obvious warnings that are plastered all over my blog, and scroll through all the posts to find something to trigger themselves with so they can complain and attempt to give their boring, meaningless life some sort of excitement by telling a stranger to voluntarily leave the planet." On September 10th, she also shared another post explaining why the Bill Dip community mattered to her. "I was in a really bad place in my life, but do you want to know what saved me? How I found people who accepted me for who I am and cared for me? The Bill Dip community. This community saved me. I owe them everything, and I will fight for them at any cost. As long as I have people who care about me, people like Envy and Mickey, I will never hurt myself again. I am loved and accepted, even though I have these disgusting thoughts." Now more Bill Dip fans on Tumblr began sharing their story, and how the pairing was also their way to cope. Another Tumblr user named Down with Hirsch tried to explain how the ship helped them in hopes of spreading awareness. They said, "I disassociated heavily of my traumas, and so retracting the steps or sympathizing with Dipper in a relationship with Bill, who is abusive and an adult, helps me process my feelings, and in ways emulate my traumatic experience in a safe and controlled environment, where I choose what to expose myself to. It's empowering because nobody asks for intimate harm. It's something that happens, and there's no choice in the matter, but now I have control over the scenarios. I'm choosing to look at this content, and I'm choosing when to put myself in his shoes. Or other times I just disassociate the situation from my own traumas completely. And in that way, I just sort of detach myself from my trauma, but handle the same subject matter constructively." However, there were still those who didn't trust their claims, and continued harassing these shippers. Now at the same time, not all Bill Dip fans were people using the content to get through a traumatic event. And Down with Hirsch also addressed this in an extensive post, discussing how fans of the ship could still be dangerous to the community as a whole. "IRL PDF files are in the community, trust me, and when they see people condoning in so much as a fictional ship, they feel validated and excused, not to mention when most of the shippers are smaller people. Things get dangerous for them because of the criminal-minded people in the community. They get off to drawn and written intimate content, and if that somehow sits well with you, you need to really think about your morals." And while there hasn't been any reported cases of the ship being used for criminal acts, there were reports of Bill Dip creators being stalked online and even doxxed, driving some of its fans away from the community out of fear of being attacked. And with the Bill Dip community still being active today, so is the massive hate towards it. Meanwhile, another popular ship with Dipper gained a well-written fan comic, only for things to take a dark and unexpected turn.
I personally love fan comics because they keep the story alive even after the show ends. They let fans explore ideas the original creator could never touch, because, you know, Disney, adding more seriousness and sometimes even darker elements like violence or even death.
Now another character that Dipper was shipped with was Pacifica Northwest, the descendant of the Gravity Falls town founder. Now she was introduced as a typical mean girl who looked down on the Pines twins.
I'm Mabel. That sounds like a fat old lady's name.
Until she and Dipper discovered that her ancestors lied about being the town's founder to gain wealth and forced the townspeople to do hard labor.
You want to know why this room was locked up? This is what I found in here.
Now this discovery led to Pacifica turning her back on her family.
Is this bell broken?
Our family name is broken, and I'm gonna fix it.
And having a healthier friendship with the twins.
Yes! We did
and so the fans began shipping her and Dipper into what's known in the fandom as Dipsifia. Now amongst those in the Dipsifia community was the DeviantArt creator Turquoise-Space35, who started posting fan arts for the ship back on December 30th, 2015, and as the years went by, Turquoise art began to closely resemble the original cartoons, making her fan comic even more disturbing as it looked like a real continuation of Gravity Falls. On March 1st, 2019, Turquoise posted the first panel of her fan comic titled Deal. It showed a new character in Gravity Falls named Gwen, who was about to make a deal with Bill when a grown-up Dipper stopped her. The story was set around 30 years after the end of Gravity Falls, and Gwen was the daughter of Dipper and Pacifica. Gwen asked Bill to show her the truth in exchange for freeing him, and when Dipper interrupted the deal, Gwen demanded her father to tell her the truth about her long-lost twin brother, Philip. She even held out a photo of Pacifica taken right after giving birth to 2 children, Gwen and her twin. However, Dipper looked confused. Even when Gwen revealed that Philip gave her the photo, Dipper denied knowing about it. And this was because Philip wasn't the name they gave to her twin brother, and even more, there was no way he could have given her the photo because her twin was gone. But before he could actually say more, Bill attacked Dipper to distract him and keep him away from his daughter. And the next time Dipper was going to see Gwen, she had already shook Bill's hand, making a deal with him. Now this allowed Bill to take Gwen's mind and fulfill his promise to give her the grim truth about her brother. Now Bill showed Gwen that her mother had given birth to a twin brother, whose real name was Dustin. However, not long after giving birth, Pacifica began experiencing nightmares that also caused her to start sleepwalking. Now she believed that Bill was plaguing her mind, so Dipper tried to find ways to protect his family. But before he could, however, something happened that would be far too disturbing for a Disney cartoon. While Pacifica was left alone with their children one day, she fell asleep, and this allowed Bill to possess her mind, showing her children turning into monsters. Bill then finally showed himself to Pacifica, confirming to her that this was all his fault, and so Pacifica decided to fight back. She grabbed a golf club and attacked Bill, and when she finally hit the demon, she realized that it wasn't Bill she was aiming for, it was Dustin, her son who she'd just given birth to, no more than a few months ago. Gwen watched her brother's life drain away, breaking down in tears as her mother carried Dustin's body. Dipper then returned, only to find his wife cradling their lifeless son in her arms, and their family destroyed. Now the guilt of having killed Dustin broke Pacifica, so much so that she couldn't bear to even look at her daughter, since she looked too much like her brother, and unable to help his wife cope with their tragic loss, Dipper made a haunting decision. Dipper visited Mabel and used a memory gun on her. The device was made to erase memories, and Dipper erased the memory of his son from the minds of everyone who knew him, including Pacifica, leaving only a few hidden pictures and his own memories as proof that Dustin ever existed. But as dark as this comic was, this wasn't the end. Bill then took Gwen to the home of her grandfather, Preston Northwest. In the comic, Preston had a grudge against Dipper for driving his daughter away and defeating Bill, whom he invested money into, thinking that the demon would reward him after Weird Mageddon. And so, Preston had made a deal with Bill to destroy the Pines family, though he was horrified to learn that Bill used his grandson and daughter to punish Dipper. Now Preston mourned how he allowed Bill to orchestrate his daughter's worst nightmare and his grandson's death, but since he was bound by his deal with the demon, he agreed to continue with their plans. He'd taken a sample of his grandson's blood to clone him and raise the new Dustin. The clone would be convinced that his parents abandoned him, and in turn he'd speak to Gwen and convince her to make a deal with Bill. Of course, this cloned grandson turned out to be Philip. Now ultimately the plan worked, as Gwen had made a deal after speaking with the clone of her dead brother, and as for Bill, his deal with Preston didn't give him a physical form in the human world, and so he targeted Gwen to possess her instead, making his return far worse for Dipper, who witnessed her transformation. Now meanwhile, Pacifica answered a knock on the door of their home and was surprised to find Philip, the clone of her son, and with tears in his eyes, Philip admitted that he did something wrong. And then, the end. Now after this cliffhanger was uploaded on DeviantArt on February 24th, 2021, Turquoise stopped posting new pages to the Deal story, leaving fans to follow the dark comic without answers. And while Turquoise comic was a hit to many, some did question if its themes were appropriate, given that Gravity Falls was a Disney cartoon. Now Dustin's fate at the hands of his own mother, and the reveal of this all being orchestrated by Preston, had Deal being dubbed as one of the fan comics that went too far. While in the Gravity Falls subreddit, users had pointed out how Dustin's last scenes were unnecessarily graphic. One even compared how the scene might even be too much for Deadpool, a popular Marvel comic known for its violence. Now so far, Turquoise seemed to not have addressed these comics, but she remained active throughout her DeviantArt and Tumblr accounts, and even though she stopped making comics for Deal, she continued making art with Gwen, Philip, and even Dustin, as if continuing their story in a different way. And based on these fan arts, it seemed that there was a conclusion to this comic. Outside the Deal gallery, a shorter comic was apparently titled Closer to the End. The first panel was posted on September 11, 2018, months before Deal even came out, as if it acted like a teaser to these events. The comic merely showed the spirit of Dustin watching over his sister, just before she made a deal with Bill. However, the cosmic entities in his dimension, where he was in, told him not to interfere, even after Bill successfully possessed his sister. Another image showed Gwen joining forces with her past lives, including Ford Pines, Stan's brother who first summoned Bill into Gravity Falls. The art hinted that Ford, Gwen, and their past lives were about to fight the demon. And then, this image showed the original characters joining hands with their children to perform the Zodiac ritual, which was also used in the last episode of Gravity Falls to banish Bill. Now this was posted on June 4th, 2021, months after the deal ended, and in the description, Turquoise said, "After overcoming adversity, after chaos and hidden truths, the prophecy was fulfilled. The members of the Wheel joined hands and the Demon of Dreams was defeated once and for all." This suggested that after Bill took over Gwen's mind, the older characters managed to defeat him once again. However, there's even more. Just 4 days after, Turquoise posted a comic where Dustin's spirit made a wish for his family to have the life they wanted, and this apparently completely reset the timeline, creating an alternate reality where Pacifica and Dipper had triplets instead: Gwen, Dustin, and Philip. And so what started out as a dark comic full of family betrayals and unimaginable tragedies ended with a happy conclusion. This next Gravity Falls fanship, however, had a more disturbing effect on the community, since it directly influenced real lives, including the creator of the cartoon himself.
It's one thing to do this to cartoon siblings. It's another thing to do this from cartoon siblings that are based off real people.
Even before the Bill Dip community began, there was another controversial ship that involved Dipper Pines, and that was with his twin sister Mabel. This ship would be known as Pinecest, a play on their last name Pines, and in the word that describes relationship between close relatives. And since Mabel and Dipper were also born not so long after the show's story began, the Gravity Falls community had more reason to be enraged over the ship's uncomfortable content. What made the ship even more disturbing was its connection to the real world. You see, Alex didn't create Mabel and Dipper Pines out of nowhere. The characters were actually based on himself and his twin sister Ariel. Alex had been open about how Mabel and Dipper's personality and their close sibling relationship were based on his real-life relationship with his sister.
The premise of Gravity Falls is basically inspired by my relationship growing up with my twin sister Ariel. There she is.
Certain little things that the characters would do, like Dipper chews on his pen, and that Alex does that all the time. And certain things like that, I think maybe Mabel doing a little like boop boop, like these are things that I do to you.
Alex even created storylines surrounding Mabel based on his sister's childhood.
Favorite episode is probably Time Traveler's Pig, just because that's when Waddles gets introduced for the first time. And yeah, so that's the thing that was true to me. I was obsessed with pigs as a little kid and really wanted a pet pig.
And seeing how the Pines twins resembled the Hearst twins during their childhood, people got even more uncomfortable with the idea of the Pinecest ship. Yet the ship continued to gain popularity. Many discovered the Pines community through its prominent creators. One of their most notable creators was an artist known online as Limey404, who ran the Double Pines pages on Tumblr and fanfiction.net. Limey started by posting Pinterest stories on fanfiction.net on August 20th and 21st, 2012, just a month after the show premiered. Now within the same year, she moved on to creating fan comics and uploading them on Tumblr. This earned her such a massive following that the other works for the ship started being referred to as Double Pines art rather than Gravity Falls fan art. Now to address the controversial ages of these characters, many artists in the community made Mabel and Dipper older in their creations. But this created another problem. With the Pines twins being based on real-life siblings, those fanworks had an eerie similarity to Alex and Ariel. And eventually the show creator himself took notice of these artworks and he responded on X on October 22nd, 2012. "If you think that's weird for you, imagine how weird it is for me. Hashtag never base cartoons on your own family." But this wasn't enough for the ship to die down. Sites like Tumblr and Reddit became a battleground for those in the Pinecest community and those who were against it. Constant callouts and name-calling came from those in the anti-Pinecest groups, while the members of the group also reported that someone against the ship was doxxed because of their opinions. And eventually, Limey decided she'd had enough. On March 19, 2016, she posted on a Double Pines blog that, "I've had some good times on this blog, but today is one of those days where I have the urge to just delete." Now her supporters flocked together to discourage her from doing so, but months later, in July of 2016, the Double Pines blog disappeared. Now fans grew concerned as to why she decided to delete her popular blog, but eventually people started piecing their story together. In November of 2016, a Reddit thread discussed the blog's disappearance, with users sharing rumors that she was doxxed because of Pinecest, and that people threatened her by calling people in her real life, including her parents. However, Limey couldn't confirm or deny these rumors, since she became inactive in all of her other pages, like her personal Tumblr account and DeviantArt page. But then another troubling rumor started circulating. This one involves Alex Hirsch and Disney themselves. The story went that Limey's influence over the Pinecest fandom made her a target for a lawsuit over the disturbing content that Disney didn't approve of. According to the rumors, she received a cease and desist order from Disney, forcing her to delete everything. And the mystery as to what really happened to her would continue for years. Until finally, on January 26, 2021, someone reopened the Double Pines blog and posted, "Every time I see something about the actually existing rumor of how Disney and or Alex Hirsch legitimately sued me on the grounds of excessive fictional twincest fan art, and that's why I disappeared, I gotta have myself a little giggle. Like y'all, this is genuinely funny." This finally ended the rumor that Alex and Disney had sued a fan for their ship. And to finally clear the confusion, Limey would make another post on October 28, 2022, revealing the real reason behind her disappearance. "Creepy, pathetic aunties knew enough about who I was IRL to make me really uncomfortable. And the puritanical burn the witch now, ask questions later online mentality has only gotten infinitely worse since then, and it just wasn't worth it to me anymore, so I hit the delete button. And this confirmed that the famous incest artist was being threatened in real life for her artwork. And while her work was still beloved by a part of the community, the next fan creation left everyone so disturbed that even those outside the Gravity Falls fandom knew about it.
Suddenly, you stumble upon a fanfiction called Dipper Goes to Taco Bell. As an innocent kid, you open the fanfiction that seemed harmless at first, but you end up scarred for life.
On July 4th, 2024, Reddit user 77_Meg asked the subreddit, Peter explains a joke about this post. The post said, how to anger a whole group of people with 2 images. Under that description, it showed an image of Dipper Pines and an entrance to a Taco Bell. 77Meg didn't know what this was about, but dozens of Reddit users immediately posted their reaction, recalling what was known as the most horrifying Gravity Falls fanfiction ever posted. Simply titled Dipper Goes to Taco Bell, the story was posted on fanfiction.net on August 23, 2012 by a user named Master of Tea's Citrus Fruits, and just a week later, the website took the story down due to its adult theme that violated their terms and conditions. However, just 1 week of being up on fanfiction.net was enough for the story to gain notoriety that spanned over a decade. The title sounds innocent, hinting that it's about Dipper dining at a Taco Bell in Gravity Falls, and indeed it started out that way. The story began with the Pine twins arguing over lunch, when Mabel mentioned a Taco Bell in town. Hearing this, Dipper decided to have some tacos from the fast food chain, but his sister and Grunkle Stan refused to join him, saying that the place was smelly. And so Dipper went to the restaurant alone, only to discover that the place was suspiciously in the middle of the forest. The outside was full of pine needles and rusted picnic tables, as if no one had actually been there in a long time, and this actually made him doubt going inside. Yet he still went, since he was far from everywhere else, and so he had no choice to have lunch there. Now to his surprise, the inside looked like a normal fast food restaurant, not the desolate place he feared walking into. However, no other customer was inside, and the only other person there was the cashier at the register. And since the cashier declared that they only had tacos, Dipper ordered one for lunch. Soon enough, he received his order, and Dipper went on to enjoy the best taco he ever had. However, right after his first bite, he felt a stomach churn. Nature was calling, so Dipper rushed to the bathroom, which was at the opposite side of the restaurant, and just before he reached the stall, he saw another person walking out, carrying a plastic bag. Now finally, Dipper arrived at his stall, but he realized that he was too late. His underwear was already a mess. And though this part was already disgusting, the fanfiction got much worse. The sight of his soiled clothes excited him, and so Dipper went on to have his private moment with himself inside the bathroom stall, over and over again. But after finishing his business and repeating the deed numerous times, he did things too hard and injured himself. The injury caused him to bleed, and the sight drove him into a mental breakdown. He screamed for help, but no one was there to save him, and minutes later, he bled to death. Now this story is already horrifying, especially since it was made in the universe of a Disney cartoon, but the story gets even darker. After the Dipper incident, the fanfiction continued with Mabel's story. Back in their room, she started to get worried that her brother hadn't returned, so she decided to look for him, and she eventually reached the mysterious Taco Bell, and to her horror, she found Dipper's lifeless body, lying down in the mixture of mess that he made, and in grief, she kissed him. Now this kiss triggered a disturbing interest in her. Mabel felt excited by having Dipper in her arms, and the rest I can't even talk about. With such graphic and disturbing content, it was no surprise that the story was taken down from fanfiction.net. However, since then, it had been re-uploaded within the site and other fan-dedicated websites like Tumblr, where people were quick to express their disgust over the story. And since its release, Dipper Goes to Taco Bell has joined the list of most disturbing shock fics, a term used for fanfiction that was written purely to shock the readers. Now meanwhile, the writer of this fanfiction, Master, was enjoying the fame and even posted an explanation about the story in their WordPress blog 1 week after their work was deleted. They revealed that they didn't actually come up with the plot of Dipper Goes to Taco Bell. It was based on a true story. Years before the Taco Bell story was uploaded, Master met someone during a hockey game, and this person just kept bringing up disgusting stories. They shared, I didn't pay attention to most of them, but there was one that really got to me. He told one how a local restaurant was shut down because something happened there, and the something being the events of Dipper Goes to Taco Bell. This was the inspiration of Master's fanfiction. However, they didn't give any specific detail about the story they heard, so no one was able to confirm which restaurant inspired the events of Dipper Goes to Taco Bell, or if the story was actually true or not. As for why they chose Taco Bell as the location, Master explained, so one afternoon I went to Taco Bell, and I got perhaps the worst service ever. The cashier was rude and obnoxious, the manager was lazy and stupid, and when I finally got my burrito, it tasted like waste. I was so angry that I wanted to write an angry letter to Yum Brands. However, after thinking about it for a long time, I turned an angry letter into a Gravity Falls shock fic. They also clarified that they wrote the fiction as more like a joke, even adding obvious spelling errors so that people won't take it seriously. However, they also admitted that part of their goal was to write something worse than the popular shark fics from other fandoms. So seeing all the reaction posts from their deleted fanfiction, Massa knew that they accomplished exactly what they wanted. Their work even inspired a short film on YouTube that was posted just 3 days after the story was originally uploaded. And years after, Dipper Goes to Taco Bell still holds the title of the most disturbing Gravity Falls fanfiction. And while the disturbing actions within this fanfiction made it famous, our next Gravity Falls figure faced the end of their career for the unwanted advances they did to real people.
Anonymous accuser says she allowed it to happen because of the culture. He abused his power.
The Gravity Falls show ended in February of 2016 with a 3-part finale about Bill's apocalyptic event called the Weird Mageddon. The event allowed Bill to control reality and create a portal for monsters to cross into the human world. One of these monsters was known as the horrifying, sweaty, one-armed monstrosity.
Hey, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about going inside my mouth.
Who was voiced and even modeled after the appearance of famous comedian Louis C.K.
Just ignoring me. That's seriously rude to just ignore someone like this.
However, nearly 2 years later, in December of 2017, people rewatching the Weird Mageddon episode noticed something different with the one-armed monstrosity.
Just ignoring me. That's seriously rude to just ignore someone like this.
His voice was a bit different from the episode's first air, and as it turned out, Disney removed Louis's voice and redubbed the monster's lines using Alex's own voice. And this was because Disney and many other studios began avoiding Louis after some very serious allegations started to surface about his interaction with female comedians. Just a month before, on November 9th, 2017, prominent news organization The New York Times published an article about 5 women working in the comedy industry experiencing unwanted advances from someone they previously looked up to, and that person turned out to be Louis C.K. According to the article, comedy duo Dana Min Goodman and Julia Wolof got their big break in 2002 when they were invited to perform at the US Comedy Arts Festival in Aspen, Colorado. And this is when they encountered Louis, who invited them into his hotel room for a drink after the show. However, when they arrived, Louis asked them for permission to take something specific out of his pants, if you know what I'm saying. The women laughed, thinking it was a joke, and that was until Louis started to do something really disturbing. He removed everything he was wearing and began satisfying himself in front of the ladies. Dana and Julia were shocked and didn't know what to do, so they just waited for it to be over and then left. Now, they immediately reported what happened to their mentor, Sharna Halper, but Sharna told the New York Times, "I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to tell them to do." But Dana and Julia didn't want to simply ignore what happened, so they attempted to spread the words about Louis's disturbing behavior to warn other women in the industry. However, Julia said that within 24 hours after the incident, "We could already feel the backlash." People in the industry treated them like they were the ones causing problems, and eventually their story reached Louis's manager, Dave Becky, who then confronted their manager, Lee Kernes, to get them to stop talking about the incident, and this allowed Louis's actions to simply continue. Another comedian, A.B. Schachner, also shared that in 2003 she was on the phone with Louis to discuss an upcoming show, when he suddenly diverted the conversation to her appearance. Now, after he complimented her, Louis started talking about his intimate fantasies, before he began to breathe heavily and making other sounds to let Abby to believe that he was doing something to himself. Now, Abby told the New York Times, "I definitely wasn't encouraging it. You want to believe it's not happening." She admitted at the time that she didn't know how to end the call, and after the incident, she told a friend about it, and how it nearly made her quit her career in comedy altogether. Now then, in 2005, actress and writer Rebecca Corey was working on a TV show with Louis when she had a similar experience.
Walking to set to shoot my scene, and he approached me and got really close to my face and said, "Can I ask you something?" And I said yes.
Louis then directly asked if he could please himself in front of her. Fortunately for Rebecca, she was able to say no before Louis could actually begin. She even called him out for doing this, pointing out that he had a daughter and a pregnant wife at the same time.
I wanted to sort of pretend like it never happened. I mean, I wanted to do my job. Those opportunities are few and far between. I most certainly didn't want to be the person that was responsible for shutting down a production or even being part of the narrative.
Now, the New York Times also spoke to a 5th woman who wanted to remain anonymous, so we'll call her Amy. According to Amy, she was in her early 20s when she worked in the production of the Chris Rock show back in the late 1990s. Louis had been a writer and producer then, and he would often ask her to watch him perform something to himself. And as someone new in the industry, she felt like she couldn't say no to someone as influential as Louis. Amy explained, "It was something that I knew was wrong. I think the big piece of why I said yes was because of the culture. He abused his power." Now, the women's stories immediately spread all over social media and entertainment news outlets. And when confronted about trying to silence Dana and Julia back in 2003, Dave claimed that, "I don't recall the exact specifics of the conversation, but I never threatened anyone." However, just a day after, on November 10th, Louis dropped a confession to the media, saying, "These stories are true. At the time I said to myself that what I did was okay, because I never never showed a woman my private area without asking first, which is also true. But what I learned later in life, too late, is that when you have power over another person, asking them to look at your private area isn't a question, it's a predicament for them. The power I had over these women is that they admired me, and I wielded the power irresponsibly. I also took advantage of the fact that I was widely admired in my and their community, which disabled them from sharing their story and brought hardship to them when they tried, because people who looked up to me didn't want to hear it. I didn't think that I was doing any of that because my position allowed me not to think about it. And with this confession, the film, TV, and comedy industry delivered their own verdict. Many projects that included Lewis were either cancelled or removed from streaming sites, like HBO On Demand. The November 17th premiere of his upcoming film titled I Love You Daddy was also cancelled and hasn't had any release as of early 2026.
If I stay here for a few more days?
Let me think about it.
Then there was his work in animations. Disney decided to redub Lewis's lines in Gravity Falls and removed his names from the credits, though the one-armed monstrosity still resembles the comedian. So far, none of the ladies have filed any lawsuits against Lewis, and as for the comedian himself, he backed away from the spotlight, but that only lasted a couple of months. He was welcomed back into the comedy stage on August 26, 2018, performing and receiving standing ovations at a comedy club as if nothing ever happened.